Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. So I want to, some of you, the material I'm going to cover today is going to sound familiar to you. But that review is extremely important in light of the deeper understanding that I am having now about the bifurcation and the separation that is happening in the planet at this moment. The division, the rift, the tribalism, the fact that we are seeing conservative against liberal, Republican against Democrat, vax against anti-vax, mask anti-mask, all of these things are actually creating this giant emotional and now physical rift and separation in humanity. And it's not just in the US. It's happening in Australia, it's happening all over Europe, it's happening everywhere. There's this giant separation and rift. Added to this is the social, economical, financial instabilities and political instabilities that are happening all around. Added to that, climate change. All these catastrophic storms, earthquakes, all kinds of crazy events. And you have individuals around the world who are being pulled into survival, which is really the core vibration and frequency for the 3D world, right? And because it's the core and signature for that, if you're not very careful and everything around you is trying to pull you into this, you will begin to be grounded into all of the emotion, and your emotional intelligence, no matter how elevated you think you were, will move back as if a car was put into reverse into the survival 3D state, okay? And I'm noticing this all around, and this is why people are getting completely ballistic, emotionally so immature, and I'm seeing a regression among people. A lot of them, actually, you and I know that used to be in our classes and our group. I'm seeing some of their posting and the kind of venomous and hateful thing that they're posting or inaccurate statement they're making. Reposting. I saw somebody today posting a whole bunch of things about vaccines and non-vaccine and so on and so forth. And somebody had to fact check them that the website he's posting is actually known as a fake website from the right. But whatever that information is, it's been fabricated. And so, and this is somebody that's highly intelligent and highly, deeply spiritual, that participated in our group for years. And I'm saying this because I want you to understand, I'm standing by and I'm witnessing all of this in disbelief. My jaw is open and I'm looking at all this. I know I received channelings that this was gonna happen 2015, starting on 2015. But it doesn't, the fact that I'm living through it right now is a completely different thing than receive it from an ascended master, where you're getting it from seeing it from the top down. But when you're sitting in it and you're living it, it's a different story. What I'm alluding to is the fact that all of these, the first thing, these individuals are being pushed. Whether you're on the left or right, whatever the position you are, it's completely irrelevant, okay? The bifurcation is nothing more than a seesaw. And both sides are in this plank trying to balance each other out. And here is the thing. People actually believe on either side of any of these issues that whatever view, insight, or breakthrough that they think they have, that that information is actually the only truth, and that the planet has only one path forward, which is their version of the world. And the other side believe it just as much, and is in complete conviction of the veracity, the strength, and more to the point, they're going to try to change the world and try to. The early Christians were trying to convert all the time, and they were doing these crusades. In early days, it would have been a crusade. They would have gone out and tried to convert everybody to their belief. And it's that same kind of mentality. And I'm witnessing this and looking at crazy to the right, crazy to the left, and I'm asking myself, what really is going on? What are we really looking at? Who is the real enemy? And it came clear to me that both sides that are being influenced by the Archons. Now, I did a whole series of classes years ago on the Archon, 4 years ago on the Archons, and I described in great details and studied with you the Book of Enoch, and we went into great detail about who they are and their history. The actual the gnostic information that's on them in the Dead Sea Scrolls, because the Gnostic religion actually believe in the Archon, and half of their texts in the Dead Sea caves are about the Archon, how to recognize them and how to deal with them. It is only in modern day history, to the point in the early Christian church, before Nicaea, the Council of Nicaea in 325 AD, the Book of Enoch, which thank God to the Gnostic, to the Coptic Christian church, they save a version of it in their Coptic Bible, and we have the translation today of it. And this is the book I'm going to refer to tonight. And the Book of Enoch was part of the canon of the Christian church. And it describes a small few paragraphs, not verses, that are in chapter 6 of Genesis about the fact that that the sons of God, which are angels, fell in love with women, the fair and beautiful women. I'm paraphrasing, fair and beautiful women. There's a lot I want to say. I can't read every historical document, because if you remember the class I did on the Archons was like I don't know, 6 or 7 weeks or 9 weeks of classes. And that reference, and then when they married women, female, and out of this union, 3 classes of beings were created: the Nephilim, the mighty men, and the men of renown. And it doesn't explain too much after this. Before the end, the next verse, God is sending Gabriel to tell Moses to build an ark because he's going to send a flood. The next chapter, Gabriel is talking to Noah and telling Noah to build an ark because the ark is going to be built because God is sending a flood. And then after that, it's the flood. This book, the Book of Enoch that I just showed you, explains the whole background and the entire story. Who these beings are, according to the Book of Enoch, were fallen angels. They were at the top of Mount Amron to watch over men as guardian angel, to protect them and to watch over them. And there were 200 chief angels and their choirs, and the references are clear. And here is what actually, and I'm going to read some parts of this, and I'm going to try to move this as briskly as I can without leaving the essence out. Because I want to remind you what's going, and then I'll go back to today and what's going on the planet, okay? And it came to pass, this is chapter 6 from the Book of Enoch. And it came to, first verse, and it came to pass when the children of man had multiplied, that in those days were born to them beautiful and fair daughters. And the angels and the sons of heaven saw and lusted after them and said to one another, come, let us choose us wives from among the children of men. And the children of man and Shemjazah, who was their leader, said to them, I fear you will not agree to do this deed, and I alone will have to pay the penalty for this great sin. And they all answered to him and said, let us swear an oath and all bind ourselves by mutual curse, so we will not abandon this plan, but to do this thing. And then they all swore together and bound themselves by mutual curse. And they were all in 200 who descended in the day of Jer in the summit of Mount Hermon, and they call it Mount Hermon because they had sworn and bound themselves by mutual curse on the act. And in these days, the name of their leaders was Shamlazah, their leader, Arakbah, Ramhel, Kobael, Tamhel, Ramhel, Daniel, Ezekiel, Barakijel, Azael, Amaros, Batarel, Amanahel, Zakiel, Samsakiel, Satariel, Turiel, Jomael, Sariel, and these were the 10 chiefs. And to them together they went and took wives for themselves, each choosing one for him, and they began to go with them and defile themselves with sex with them. Now, as a result of this, the book goes into describing the fact that the children were born. And it wasn't just the fact that there was a crossbreed breeding between species, because in the Bible, the chapter 5 of Genesis goes into great detail to describe what they call the genealogy of the Bible, where all the patriarchs, their age, who begot who, including Methuselah, who lived to be 900 and something years old. That one lived to be 700. That one begot this one when he was 146. That one begot. And to all of the teachers I've studied with, the Kabbalists, they all say to me, those were actual age. This is not an analogy. When we were genetically pure, without alteration of our DNA, we, human beings, live that long, okay? That next chapter describes how our DNA got diluted because of the crossbreeding of a celestial collective, small collective with us. Now, notice in there, Lucifer is not in there. This is not the Luciferian form. It's a very discrete, smaller form. And the way the Book of Enoch described them, he describes them as what they call the watchers, because they were supposed to watch over man, or the inorganic being. That name comes back again. Carlos Castaneda called them inorganic being. The Native American Indian called them Wetiko, or the adversary, or inorganic being. And the Book of Enoch and the Gnostic Bibles describe them also as inorganic being or archon. And archon is a Greek word that actually means ruler. Okay? So I wanted to describe all of this to you very quickly to give you a sense of, remind you of the background we're working with. Okay? And to the next part of the Book of Enoch, the next chapter, begin to describe not only the fact that they had married women female, but the knowledge, the forbidden knowledge that they brought to humanity. One brought, for example, knowledge on how to kill, weaponry, how to create weapon, how to kill other people. Somebody else brought what were at the time forbidden science and knowledge, because humanity emotionally was such as a tender moment in development. This is right after the Garden of Eden. People were just beginning to develop. There was certain information that we as a collective could not handle at the time. So, for example, sorcery and magic. They taught humanity how to do this. They brought all of these other forbidden knowledge to us as a way to alter our genetic destiny. Okay? As a result of this, God, human soul begin to die very early, inordinately early because of this. And by the way, before I get into this, the reason for the flood that God sent, according to the Book of Enoch, that describes it in great detail, was an ethnic cleansing, because there were people on earth like Noah who were righteous, meaning their bloodline had not been contaminated yet. It was a matter of time before it happened. And there were others where the genetic destiny was completely diluted. This is where we ended up having 2 strands of DNA, whereas before we had 12. So we were completely being altered by this coupling, by these marriages. And not just the marriages, but everything else that came with it, the forbidden knowledge and all the information. And we got corrupted with all of this information. And in the process, we derailed, we begin to fall. Even deeper, that we begin to be dumbed down. Now, this is the description in the Book of Enoch. The Gnostics describe the archons slightly differently. Okay? They said that, and this is the same with the Native American and the shaman that are calling them the Adversary and Wetiko and all that. They are describing them as a negative force that is incomplete. The term in the Gnostic teaching is simulacrum. They are like us, but not really us. They are missing something. And because they are missing something, they are incomplete. And since they are celestial beings posing as human, they have a part of our humanity that they are missing. And as such, they can appear as anything else. They cannot create anything new. But anything that we are involved in, they can influence and corrupt and twist and turn and make it appear as something that's unrecognizable. So when I looked at all of my friends, family members, light workers, people I know that I'm saying on both sides of this bifurcation, completely demonizing each other, going after each other with gusto. I mean, this is like a bloodbath. You see like piranhas that are going after meat. They are going completely ballistic and insane. There is no intellectual arguments and conversation you can have with them. There is no emotional appeal that you can make to kind of like calm people down to see if they can get back to basic. They are being influenced. This is the work of the Archon. The way the native described it. They call them the adversary because they are an ancient enemy of humanity, and they've always been there. And the way they work is that they are cloaked and they're invisible. And what they do, their specialty, is to influence us by putting thoughts and ideas and agitating our emotional bodies to, and the way they do it, they're brilliant. Do not underestimate them, they're brilliant. They take half truth. They base it on some truth that will fan a fear that you have. And from that fear, they begin to imply all kind of disastrous scenario. And then they try to polarize you to become a militant or to become radicalized so that you can try to defend the cause, so that you can go in a crusade and try to change people. And all the crusade ended up the same way. The people who did not convert, the Christians who were trying to do crusade, killed all of them. The first crusade that happened in Languedoc, in the south of France, when the army of King Louis the Fair and King Louis and the Pope were arriving at the edge and the border of Languedoc, and they couldn't recognize who were the Cathars, who were not Cathars, because the Cathar church looked like the Christian church. They had a cross. You couldn't tell. The Cathar were Gnostics, basically. You couldn't tell which was who was who. And one of the generals asked, one of the knights asked the Pope, how would we tell? How do we separate who's Christian, who's Cathar? He replied by saying, kill them all and God will separate them. And they slaughter everyone. This is all connected to the influence of the Archon. And there is not one of us on the planet that is not infected. Now, the key to it, do you want to remain infected, or do you want to choose a different path? Do you want to regain your sovereignty? Do you want to remove their influence, and do you want to elevate above it? I don't want to give these classes because they make people scratch and get paranoid, but we have to talk about it because we are witnessing it in real life. It's happening all around us. We all know these people. We have to talk about it, and we have to talk about how to recognize what's happening. Before I continue, any questions, any comments? All right. So it's important that we have this discussion and to understand that the emotional reactivity that's coming from these people where they actually believe, and you see them change. They're posting on my mass media all these venomous comments. They are constantly having conversation when they're trying to change your mind, trying to tell you you're wrong, and they're trying to position themselves. I don't respond to any of it. I'm just standing by and witnessing. And what I'm trying to lead you into understanding is that the bifurcation, that point, that seesaw, is trying to balance each other out. And the Archons are working both sides, like they always done in every human conflict since they descended from Mount Aaron. They've always done this, because when we're in fear and we're in complete chaos, they win. What is their end game? Reverse planetary ascension. Make sure that we don't ascend. Because as long as you're in survival and they have infuriated you and brought to your attention Because the way they operate is that they scan you and they know exactly what your weak spot is and what will trigger you. And then they begin to bring information to make you believe that that weak spot is being attacked. And you're in grave danger of losing control over what you fear the most. And then immediately they begin to attach that loss of control to a person, collective, or group of people. Be Mexican, Black, Jews, doesn't matter, or conservative, or, you know, very specific individual on the planet. It doesn't matter. And then now the next thing is that now they're going to radicalize you. You have to go out there and you have to now try to take these people down. It's a revolution. And it's happening so quickly and so fast. A matter of a few months, you see people whose character you could have vouched for, you could have swore that they're you know, calm, rational, loving, caring, and peaceful people. They're completely changed. I have to tell you, some aspect of this and the way it's being done is absolutely brilliant. This is me, the nerd in me, watching this and saying to myself, whatever it is that they're using, it's extremely effective. Of course, the part of me that's connected to my heart is deeply disturbed and feeling heartbroken over the fact that these people are not seeing how influenced they are. And all of us know people like that. We are friends and family members. We know people who are caught in this glue trap of reactivity, of this uncontrollable fuming of emotion, because they actually believe that there's half truth. It's not what they're bringing, the information that they're bringing to the, meaning the archon, or bringing to the attention of these people on the planet. It's not that there is a part that it's not true. In fact, both sides hold a facet of the truth, but it's how the truth is spun. It's how it's interpreted. It's how it's actually perceived. It's how it's being framed. It's how it's being finessed that is causing many to lose it completely. I'm watching all of this, and again, a few of these people, as I said, I am in shock. They're light workers. Some of them studied with me for years, were in my apartment, where I cook for them. I am in shock. They were at WESAC with me, the channel with me. I am in total shock. And I'm heartbroken at the same time, because they are being influenced, they are infected, and they are not realizing it. Thus, for me, I have to be more vigilant. I have to be very careful that at some point I am not being triggered to go into the same spin. I am not being influenced. I'm not being agitated to lose it and to go into the same irrational reactivity, and therefore influenced by them just the same way they were, and they are. Does any of this make sense? Does any of this relate? Do you know anybody that is going through this?
Oh, yes. Yes, I do.
Okay. And again, it is my hope that we will, and today I'm going to talk about some of the things that we need to do in order for us to, to circumvent and make sure that this doesn't happen to us. And hopefully that won't be the case. Okay, so I was going to continue to read from the Book of Enoch. I'm not going to go too deep into it because, as I said, if you remember, it was a 9-class series that we did on the, and if you desire for me to do another refresher of this class, I can actually redo it again. That's not a problem. But for now, it's just a quick reminder that the division and the separation, the rift that's being carved out, and the way I'm seeing, and as I said, there's a part of me that think how brilliant, how quickly these people have changed. That whatever it is that these technologies or the way the influence of the Archon, and what they're doing and the way they're doing it is extraordinary. Because when you have events, like say a disease, like the virus that's going out there, when you have when you have a natural disaster, when you have all of these incredible events that all seem to be threatening us as human beings, where we feel vulnerable, they immediately begin to say that the vulnerability and the fear that you have is not because it's an act of God, but rather they find somebody to blame. They point an arrow directly at a boogeyman or a collective, a group, or a nation, and they point out directly to them and they say, it's this person, it's this collective, and it's deliberate, it's a cabal. They've orchestrated this, they've been doing this for centuries, they've been planning this, blah, 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 and they are trying to destroy humanity. You don't have a future unless you get up and you battle and you go into pure revolution. This is what they're doing. And this is on both sides of the bifurcation. And they are working both sides. They've always done it. It's absolutely brilliant because as far as manipulation is concerned, because people keep thinking about, what had happened in the election in the US, that it was just the Russian. It wasn't just the Russian. But yes, there was a lot of Russian stuff that was happening over the last election, but it wasn't in 2016. It wasn't just the Russian. The Archons were deeply involved in this. Now, the problem is that modern men do not believe in angels, and they believe less in fallen angel. And therefore, what I'm saying now is hogwash. It's nonsense. And therefore, there is no such thing, and etc. But I am witnessing it. You're all witnessing it. People's personalities, character, and they are now militant, and they're going out there. And in some places in our country, they're buying guns, and they're getting an arsenal ready. They're training for war. This is how far it has gone. And I told you before, one of these Archon, even today, every war that has been fought and lost, they've worked on both sides of the war. Because they taught humanity how to kill. They're the one that brought this knowledge, weaponry, and killing. They brought that knowledge to humanity. At the time when we had just stepped out of the Garden of Eden, it was forbidden knowledge. And no celestial being would have ever brought that information to us. In fact, that being in the Book of Enoch, there's a portion of it where God said to that being, to you I assign all sins because of what he did, because of him altering the genetic, not only the genetic makeup, but also bringing war and destruction to humanity. Now, there's a part of the book, and I'm trying to find it, where God sent his 3 archangels to bind and to hold this being in prison. So what happened is that when the Book of Enoch continues, when I think it was Archangel Michael who said to God, went in front of the throne of God and said, man is dying because of what this being did, and their soul are asking for justice. What do we do? And then God said to them, God said to Archangel Michael, Gabriel, and Raphael that he will send them down to earth to correct the wrong that was done by these angels, and more to the point, to bind and put into the bowel of the earth all of these angels for something like 70,000 years. And which was actually done. The one archangel, the one fallen being, I'm going to read you the part where this happened, okay? I think it's the best way to actually describe it. Chapter 10 of the Book of Enoch. This is God speaking. And then said the Most High, the Great and Holy One, Uriel, go to the son of Lamech, say to him, go to Noah and tell him, in the name, hide yourself, and reveal to him the end that is approaching, and that the whole earth will be destroyed, and the flood is about to come on the whole earth and will destroy everything on it. And now instruct him as to what he must do to escape, that his offspring may be preserved for all generations of the world. And again, the Lord said to Raphael, bind Azazel. Now, Azazel is the fallen angel who taught weaponry and killing and destruction, and still today, still doing it on both sides of every conflict in the world. Every time there's a killing, he's there. Bind Azazel's hands and foot and cast him into the darkness and slip open the desert, which is in the Dudael, and cast him in. And fill the hole by covering him with rough, jagged rock, and cover him with darkness, and let him live there forever, cover his face that he may not see the light. And on the day of the great judgment, he shall burn into the fire. And heal the earth, which the angel have ruined, and proclaim the healing of the earth. For I will restore the earth, heal the plague, that not all of the children of men may perish through these secret things that the watchers have disclosed and have taught their sons. The whole earth has been corrupted through the work that they've taught, and by Azazel to him ascribed all sins. Go, Gabriel, said the Lord, proceed against the bastard and the reprobate, and against the children of fornication, and destroy the children of fornication and the children of the watchers. Cause them to go against one another, and that they may destroy each other in battle, shorten their days. No request that the watchers and their fathers make to you shall be granted, then on their behalf, for they hope to live an eternal life, that each one of them will live 500 years. And the Lord said to Michael, go and bind Shemshazar and his team who have associated with women and have defiled themselves in all their uncleanliness. When their sons have slain one another, they have seen the destruction of their beloved one. Bind them fast for 70 generations under the hills of the earth, under the days of the consummation of their judgment, until the eternal judgment is accomplished. In those days, they shall be led off to the abyss of fire and to the torment and the prison in which they shall be confined forever. Then Shemshazar shall burn up with the condemned, and they will be destroyed, having been bound together with them to the end of all generation. Destroy all of the spirit of lust in the children of the watchers, because they have wronged mankind. Destroy all the wrong from the face of the earth, and let every evil work come to end. Let the earth be planted with righteousness. The plant of righteousness, truth, appear, and it shall prove a blessing. The work of righteousness and the truth shall be planted in truth and joy forevermore. And then shall all righteous survive, shall live until they begot thousands of children. In all the days of their youth and their old age shall they compete in peace. And then shall the whole earth be entitled in righteousness, and shall be planted with trees and full of blessings. And all the desirable trees shall be planted on it, and they shall plant vines on them. And the vine which they plant shall yield fruit of abundance. As for all the seed which is sown, each measurement of it shall bear 1,000, and each measurement of olive shall yield them to press oil. You shall cleanse the earth from all oppression, and from all unrighteousness, and from all sin, and from all godliness, all uncleanliness, and is brought on the earth, you shall destroy off of the earth. All the children of men shall become righteous, and all nations shall offer adoration and shall praise me. And all shall worship me, and the earth shall be cleansed from defilement, and from all sin, and from all punishment, from all torment, and it will never again send another flood from the generation to all generation and forevermore. That's the end of the chapter. I wanted to read this because I wanted you to understand that there was a consequence to their action, which was that they sent these three mighty archangels. Raphael's name in Hebrew actually means the healing of God. But Raphael does not heal all disease, because he was basically the antidote to the work that Azazel did. He heals battle wound. Any consequence of battle, anything connected to battle, Azazel's specialty is to heal it. Gabriel was sent to confuse them and to have the watchers and their children and their progeny battle each other so that they would destroy each other and to cleanse the earth. Michael had a very specific purpose to bind some of these beings, including their leader, Shemshaza, and put them into the bowel of the earth and buried them until the day of the judgment. And it was for 7 generations. But what then occurred, the flood was sent, all of the cleansing, all of that was done. But what happened even after the flood, that time frame passed and these beings were released. And they are now propagating all over the earth.
I think you said 17 generations.
Is it 70?
17 is what I heard.
Oh, let me look again.
And it does seem unfair that until the fires of judgment that should come after the flood.
Not 70, 70, the author's note, 70 generation.
70
70
generations.
generation. Okay, 70. And so I want you to understand this, because it's easy for us to believe we're battling because, okay, there is a story, I don't have the text right next to me, but there's a story in the Gnostic Bible describing the original Eve and one of the fallen angels, these archons, trying to come to her to copulate with her in the appearance of a man, of a very attractive man, taking the appearance of a very attractive man. But Eve at the time had all of a 12 strand of DNA. She was a multidimensional being, and she could see right through it. And Eve laughed, according to the text, and cast a shadow or an illusion of herself, a mirage, and while she was laughing, watched this fallen angel soiled himself with an illusion while she was laughing. So as long as we were, 12-strand DNA power, we could see them. They were easy to recognize. The way they got over this when they realized they were not getting anywhere is that they begin to agitate the weather. They begin to create fires. They begin to create storms. They begin to create all kinds of natural events. They were angels, after all, they could do this. And as they did this, men became afraid. And the moment we went into fear, we went into survival. So the way they are doing this right now, because of all the external events that are happening, now all these external events are being done by a cabal? No. They're happening because for the past 100 years, humanity has acted solely from greed. We are chasing money. Every corporation, every government, it's about exploitation of the earth for money, exploitation of everything for money, nation for money, more profit, more money. And because we've done this, we've toxified enough of the planet for nature now to cosmically try to correct. And the catastrophic events that are taking place is nature trying to rebalance the scale. Because we've pushed the envelope so far out that if it continues down this way, we're going to make the environment toxic for every life form to survive. So nature now is going to take over to correct it. We've become the menace. It is not being done by cabal. That's the first thing. Moreover, and because we are now in 2-strand DNA bodies, we've been altered, all of us, we don't have the capacity to be able to see or hear the whispers of the Archon as they are influencing us and coming into us. There are certain thoughts and certain ideas that come into my mind. Sometimes I'm saying to myself, particularly, I'm on the path of ascension of neutrality. And there are certain thoughts and ideas that are coming into my head, doubts and fears. And I'm like, this is not of God. And I can tell because the kind of peace that I wake up into, the kind of serenity where I feel rest, or even if I'm not at rest, within my 12 universal breath, after I do it, I can find the rest, I can find the peace. There are moments where for like a week or two, I am not at peace. I am profoundly disturbed. And when I am in that state, I know I am being influenced, or at least they're trying to penetrate me. And I have to do whatever I need to do to find peace. The bifurcation, either side of it, is not the path toward the new earth. The path toward the new earth is a third path. And that's what we have to engage in. But they will try and do their best because, after all, they've altered our DNA. But we're a work in progress. We're transiting away from their connection. We have the DNA reconstruction. By the way, I want to mention this. The reason why the Holy Grail and the story of the blood of Christ, and why in the church the blood of Christ is so important, and how, and the Holy Grail of the blood of Christ and all that, it's because the blood of Christ is the righteous blood. In French, the actual word, le sang réel, the real blood, it means this is the blood with the 12 strands of DNA. This is the blood that has been reconstituted and redeemed. This is why it's holy. This is why it's able to purge and heal and do all kinds of miraculous things. And the DNA reconstruction process that I channel, and many of you are doing right now, and I've been doing, it's the process by which you can redeem your own bloodline by connecting to very specific collective who are gifting you the ability to disconnect to the influence and the barrier and the blockages that these archons have done to us eons and eons ago, since we came out of the Garden of Eden. So it is important for us to understand the help is there. If at any point you feel that you're being influenced, you can call upon Archangel Michael, Archangel Gabriel, and Raphael and ask them to, because God gave them directive. Cleanse, repair, so that humanity will survive, will not only survive, but will thrive. You can ask them to disconnect you to the influence of these beings and remove them from your consciousness. Any questions, any comments? I remember at the beginning of the pandemic, must have been around May, I was part of that group that was examining what the transit into the new earth looked like. And I remember having a private conversation, not during the group, but a private conversation with John Peterson, was the leading the group. And I remember us telling him, are you noticing how people are changing so rapidly that they are becoming completely crazy? They have arm on both sides. There's a giant clash, like two titans that's standing in the middle of the prairie that are preparing to battle each other out. Are you aware of this? Are you picking this up? And he was describing the exact same thing. And I'm like, it's the Archon, we're being influenced and all of that. But at the time, I didn't put emphasis enough on the importance of this, because there were so many balls that were flying in the air. The virus was still full blown. There are so many other things that were in my mind. I didn't have the clarity about this that I have right now, which is that I see it so clearly now that all of these individuals and people that I love some of you would be shocked to see that these people have channeled for me in reset. They've done all kinds of things, and they're all on the plank, completely radicalized and completely trying to change people's mind. All their social media posts, it's all about rallying. How can you not see this? Don't you realize that this is happening to you? We have to get up. We have to. It's a revolution. We have to fight. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. Now, one of the things I wrote something, I will send it to the mailing list, maybe today or tomorrow, probably tomorrow. One of the things that I've been trying to convey in that particular write-up I did, there are three things that there's a series of filters. When somebody sends you a link, a video that is promising some insight or disclosure about any potential collective experience that the planet is experiencing. There's a lot of them circulating in mass media. People are inboxing you all kinds of things, and they're sending you this information. Some of them are coming for people with PhD that are telling you information that they too are infected. This is what I'm trying to make you understand. And here's the filter that I'm using. And I'm suggesting that you do the same. You don't have to, you're grown, you can make your choice, but I'm suggesting that you do. First thing is what I am watching, witnessing, experiencing, generating fear in me. Second question, is this presentation write-up demonizing an individual or a collective? Third, is this presenter asking me to become a militant for that cause? And if all three of the answers are yes, it is the Archon. You're being influenced. Walk away. Be smarter. Walk away. It's the Archon. Part of what they're saying is true, but the way it's being interpreted, it's taken out of context, and the implication and everything else is incorrect. So many people have forwarded me stuff as a spiritual teacher. Do you think this is true? Blah, blah, blah. Some people are saying, be aware of this, blah, blah, blah. You know, people are still saying, anyway, I don't want to get into the politics and the dynamics of it. I'm going to hold my peace with this. But what I can say is that when these inbox information comes into me, this is the filter that I use. This is generating fear in me. That's the first strike. Second strike, they are demonizing a very specific group, individual, or as the party that's responsible. Third, they are claiming they want me now to spread this poison around and to go out in the street and burn things. If that is what's going on, it is not the path of neutrality. It is not the third path. It is not the path of the new earth. You're going to be stuck in 3D because all of these things, it's what they're triggering and it's brilliant marketing. This is what I'm saying, is that there's a part of me that admires the nuance and the way they're doing this. It's brilliant marketing because part of what they're presenting is true, but they're presenting in a way to trigger a fear in you. This is why generating fear. And then they're telling you the person responsible for the fear is this, that, or the other. Now go out in the street and go after them. Now, if you can use that as a tool, as a filter, a lot of these things will just drop down. Because a lot of these people, otherwise, you would never think of them as participating and being influenced by the Archon. Many of them are researchers, they are virologists, they are scientists, they are this, they have PhD, they have all kind of credentials behind their name. But it doesn't mean that they cannot be influenced by fallen angels. This is a war of principalities. The true battle is in the inner plane. It's a battle for your soul and for your consciousness and to hold you back from ascending, for leading and opening up the doorway for the rest of humanity to ascend. And this is the part that destroys my heart for these light workers, because all of them are beacons. And given the right circumstances, they would be co-creating the opening of the gates toward the new earth. They would be building the bridge that connects us through the third path into this ascended to Mars. They are being derailed. And there is nothing I can say to them to convince them otherwise. They will not hear me because it's so deeply rooted. Basically, they're in a cult. They're in a cult.
Can I ask a question, Pierre?
Yes.
So if both sides are being influenced and you can recognize the 3 steps to filter out that influence, does that automatically show you the truth of between the 2 paths?
Yes. In other words, if you can get to a place where you can recognize you're being influenced, part of what they're saying is true, the rest is not true, you can begin to select and choose where you exist. You're gonna, because it's an individual choice. We are at a crossroad now where multiple parallel realities are occupying the same space. And those two, the bifurcation, those 2 realities are trying to select as many people as possible. What I'm saying is that there's a 3rd, 4th, 5th path. There are multiple other paths. So we need to be smarter and begin to recognize I'm not choosing that path. They're trying to influence me, because if I remain in survival and worry about what's going to happen to me because I'm worried about this, that, or the other, I'm going to worry. You and I will not make it. We get stuck in the glue trap. So the moment you begin to recognize that, you have the discernment and you have to say to yourself, I choose neutrality. And I'm saying this to you, and I don't mean to say that by doing just this, you will find the peace. There were days, and for that matter, weeks, where I had to struggle for a week or 2 before I found the peace again. Because I was so disturbed by what I was witnessing. It was generating fear. It took me deep into survival. And the moment I went into survival, the desire is, I'm going to scratch to survive. And if I have to blame and kill and destroy other people, they are collateral damage. I'm going to do it. And I knew that was wrong, right? I knew that was wrong. So there's a part of me that was confused and lost. And I remember saying this maybe to Marjorie, to some people that were close to me. I remember saying, I'm not at peace. I'm not at peace. I need to find my peace. Now, the other thing that's going to help you find your peace is to repeat over and over again while you're trying to release whatever the fear that you have identified, whatever the vulnerability. Here's the part that's the greatest part of all of this. These natural disaster events that are triggering all these big fears are not trying to kill you. It's a natural correction. It's also an opportunity for us to find transcendence. What do I mean by this? I mean by that simply, when, let's say there's a hurricane or some kind of natural disaster that's coming up, earthquake, etc., and it scares the daylight out of you and make you feel vulnerable, acknowledge the vulnerability. Be emotionally intelligent. You see, a lot of these other leaders that I'm mentioning, they're not emotionally intelligent. They have not done emotional intelligence work. So if you can recognize that there is a vulnerability in you that this has triggered, even for example, when I'm being shown a video and the video generated fear and made me aware of something that scares me, that fear is a vulnerability. And that vulnerability usually implies there is a part of my life that I have lost control over. Okay, there's a great boogeyman, something scary that they're pointing out that I've lost control over. So I go into my deep breathing exercise, my universal breath, and I then go so deep and I say to my God, take this away from me. I am vulnerable, I am scared, and I cannot control this. I've lost control. You can do anything. You are infinity times infinity. Take this away from me. I'm scared. Support me. And the moment you do this, you go into the blessed field and you really let go. The exact frequency, vibration, and typically action that you need to take to remove your loss of control and your vulnerability will find you into the blessed field and will take you out of your fear.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Marjorie, you wanted to say something? I guess not. She was unmuted for a while. Oh, okay. Yes. And yes, Marjorie, amen to that. So the idea and the concept is to the idea and is to basically begin to think of ways in which you can use these instead of looking them as scary events. They are not scary events. There is an accelerant that has been placed in the ether of the earth, a way for us to move faster and to evolve faster. And that accelerant creates these events. And as these events are being created, the opportunity for you to find transcendence through each one of them is being presented to you. You're being served on a means to find warp speed into ascendance. Because every time you move through one of these thresholds where you're able to overcome the fear and find the peace and find the serenity, it will give you confidence. And the key to it, the real key, is your connection to your higher power. This is the way the transcendence is found. It's your connection to your higher power. And if you don't have none, because you don't pray and you don't meditate and you don't have an active practice with your creator, I suggest you quickly create one. Because to the degree that you can surrender this and give it over, it's to the degree that you will connect to this blessed field where the solution to your very specific disempowerment, no matter what shape it takes, no matter what shape that fear shows up, because that fear is being created, you're being manipulated, it's being inflated by the Archon. And the part where I was too weak, I lost it. I knew this. I know I'm being influenced. I know I was infected at the time. They were inflating me. I was not at peace. And I remember talking to Marjorie, I kept saying, I'm not at peace. I need to find my peace. And in fact, what I did around that time is that all the private messages that were being sent out to me, all of the emails and the texts I watched none of them. I'm like, I'm not watching any more of this nonsense because I'm not at peace right now. I'm not going to put more things in my mind, in my consciousness to cause me to go deeper down this funnel. I need to rise and get out of this drag of this funnel. Now, what I did as well is that as I went in the blessed field and asked God to take this away from me, and as I surrender the vulnerability and the lack of control, I did I kept on repeating over and over again. After I had done this, I release all attachments, fears, and control. And I surrender to the great emptiness and endless luminosity over and over again. I release all attachment, fears, and control. And I surrender into the great emptiness and endless luminosity. I release all, and as I did this, I kept thinking about the control that I've lost, the very specific fear that this is generated in me. And that fear is usually connected to things that I'm attached to that I think I'm losing. And I think very specifically about these things when I'm saying these words. And I repeat it over and over again as I do this. And I surrender into the great emptiness, the vast field, the blessed field. And the luminosity, the insight, the peace that this is going to give me. And as I do this, poof, it goes away. And then minutes later, the solution set and what I'm supposed to do appear for me. Any other questions or comments?
Pierre, you hit on so many points that bring, things to mind. Don't know which one to start with first. I said, but when you started off talking about a half a truth is a whole lie, and you only have to you look at the way the news is handled. If someone says, something about you, you're not innocent until you're proven. Somebody proves you guilty. You're guilty until you can prove your innocence. Everything is in reverse. And I remember an incident that I had myself personally, and this was many years ago, with my first husband, and we worked on the same job, and but he was in a different department than myself, and he just started planting all these rumors, about me, and I was on the telephone because I did reservations, and people would call from different parts of the company when they had to make a reservation for themselves if they were listing to go on a trip somewhere. And I got this call from this guy, and I said my name, and as soon as I said my name, he asked me, if my husband at that point, we were separated, did he work in air freight? I said yes, and so then he started telling me this story about myself, and I'm like, what? And he said, it's such a shame. He said, is it because of the shifts that your husband is working and that you started, doing all this running around? He said, it's just a shame. He said, you're staying out all night, and now somebody is living with you, and he painted this picture. He's talking to me, and I didn't know who he's talking about. I was staying out all night, but I was working from midnight to 8 in the morning. I did have somebody living with me. My cousin was living with me, because, he wasn't helping to support, and I had to, help to, change my financial situation so I could handle, the things I had to do. So he said half of what he said was right. I was staying out all night long. But he didn't say it was work related. He just said I was staying out all night long. He said somebody was living with me, and that was true. It was my cousin who was living with me. Oh, he had people watching me, and I'm looking at these people, and I'm like, why is that person staring at me? Because they're hearing all of these things, and it doesn't seem to add up. Because at work, I'm very quiet. I don't say anything. They think I have a split personality, and I'm doing something crazy, and they're watching. How could this woman, be doing all these things? And one girl, she came in, and she said, "Does anybody know who, who?" She was asking for me, and so I said, "Anybody know who she is?" And so I said, "Yeah." And she said, "Oh, I heard all those things." I said, "You know who it is?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "Is she here today?" I said, "Yes." And so she said, "Where is she?" I said, "I am the person you're speaking about." And it was like, okay, people just let your imagination take the rest of the story. So a half a truth usually is a whole lie, because it depends on who. But look at how our politics is played. They take a story and they spin it one way or the other. Then you have to spend the rest of the time trying to prove that what they said is not right, or whatever. So, we have all these things that are happening around us based on these tried and proven ways to undermine, to overthrow, to disrupt, and to play on your fears and your discriminations and all the other things. They have been doing this successfully for many, many years, many, many, many years, and it's not going to stop until we. I'll just say for myself, if somebody tell me a story, I do not repeat it. I don't care what it is you tell me. I'm not gonna. Or if somebody says, "I'm gonna tell you a secret," I said, "Don't tell me your secrets, because I don't even keep mine. So don't bother to tell me, because this is a dead end, for that. I'm not going to do that." And so we have this place, we're coming to this place where now we have to be able to watch our own body and see how you're reacting to something. Watch your own senses. And sometimes you can't get so intellectually involved in it, but just watch and see how is this affecting you in your own body. Does it feel right? No. If it doesn't feel right, then hey, you don't do that. And so we're asking ourselves to be more discerning, and then to ask for that as also as something to open up in you as a gift, the gift of discernment. And so instead of us hiding, as you said, from the boogeyman, you face your own, fears. You face your own demons, and so that won't be there to speak to you. And there's just so many things, that you touched on. If this is every day, if someone is acting different than what you knew them to be, even though you recognize the person's face, realize that there's another element to this person, which is spirit, and that may not be the same spirit there. And so you say to yourself, "Wow, Jim is acting pretty strange today. I don't know who's in that body. I recognize the face, but I don't know the actions." And so you have to be more aware. And a friend of mine, she had said, "Well, sometimes you don't even have the right word for something, but we have to make up new words. You have to be alert, aware. We have to talk differently to ourselves, and so you increase your own awareness and your alertness. Be mindful. Be considerate. Do you run down all the things that you need to do for yourself, and you really don't have time to entertain the other person's, paranoia. You really don't. So I would just say, hey, we of the old school, because I consider myself the old school, and I know Bobby and Esther know this song and say, if we ever needed the Lord before, we sure do need him now. Sing to yourself. Remind yourself in little ways. And you just say, someone sent me something on Facebook, and it was a very menacing looking trail, very ominous looking thing. They said, would you walk down here at 2 o'clock in the morning? I would say, why? Why would I want to walk down there at 2 o'clock in the morning? I don't even need to answer that. Why am I going to go someplace menacing and dark and by myself at 2 o'clock in the morning? What for? What has happened that I need to do this? Sometimes we put ourselves in harm's way without it being necessary, or we create an anxiety before something happens, and then you're anxious 2 times. You're anxious if it does happen, then you're anxious when it does happen. So wait a minute. I'm not putting myself in that situation anymore, although I used to anticipate, what's going to happen? No. Hey, when I get to that, hey, it's time enough, to go through that when I get there. But also, I can do something different. I can choose to do something different. I can pray. I can always pray, and that's my default. Hey, why do I need to be worried about this? I can pray. The worry is a negative prayer, so why can't I just pray positively? Why can't I choose to handle this differently, hear it differently?
The point, Celidia, is that you're implying there is that for you to pray, you have to recognize first that there is a God. Second, that you're also in fear, and that you're vulnerable, and that you need help.
Yes, and that's why I said sing. If I ever needed the Lord before, I sure do need Him now. Even if I was an atheist, I would be saying that. If I didn't even know that there was one, just in case there is one, I'm gonna pray anyway. Even if I don't think there's one, I'm gonna pray anyway.
This is what Voltaire, the great French philosopher, said the same thing at the end of his life. He said, "Just in case there's a God, I'm gonna start going to church."
Right, just do it anyway, just in case.
He's like, you never know. Right. I don't know what's happening on the other side, but I'm gonna start, having a spiritual life, because that way, whatever happened in the afterlife, I'll be ready.
That's right. It's in the foxhole. There's no atheists. Hey, everybody. Oh God. Well, what are you talking about? If you don't believe there's God, who are you asking to protect you? Yeah. You're in a hole in the corner, someplace in the dark. Who are you calling on when you said there's nobody? So why are you calling? So you do believe something. Yeah. So you may not think you believe anything, but you just let yourself get stuck somewhere. You will find a God, even if it's a lamppost. Lord, help me, and you hold on to that lamppost. Yeah. Well, I said you need to just remember, these are visceral feelings that you feel. Sometimes when you know something is really not right, and then you say, I'll do it anyway. And inside you, you know that really is upsetting you. Then at that point, you say, wait a minute, I need to just stop. Mm-hmm. I need to, honor my own body's intelligence. Because every time I have acted against myself, I have wound up in the worst situations.
Amen. Absolutely.
So that's why I said, your body is going to tell you. You're an antenna. You're receiving and sending all the time. There is that electrical force field, even if you don't know how to identify it. That's why I said, you could be deaf, dumb, and blind, and the archons will find something for you to do. Yep. So hey, we need to depend more on the intelligence that's within us. And don't put your hand in the socket. Why would you want to do that? Oh, well, anyway, I'm just going to be quiet. There's so many things came up. I said, this is the way the world is running today. You just let somebody tell a half story. Like when they were talking about Obama, not a U.S. citizen. He went through that. How many? Half the man's administration, he's trying to prove he's an American. What? And you put all these impossible things. This old lady that used to live in my house, and she wasn't very educated. And this is when they were telling people they had to sign up for Social Security to get the number. And Miss Carter went down to the administration to sign up, And the lady said, I need your birth certificate. And Miss Carter said, I don't have a birth certificate. And so the lady wouldn't let her have the Social Security card. And she sent her home. And Miss Carter went back. She said, at that time, they didn't have birth certificates that issued, and there wasn't in a hospital. She was probably on a census someplace, but they couldn't find the records. They couldn't find nothing to show that Miss Carter was born. And she went back down there and she said, I want to get my Social Security number. And the lady said, well, you have to prove that you were born where you said that you was born. And she said, well, I is here. And the lady couldn't find any reason to fight that argument. She's here. The proof of the fact that she was born is she's standing there in front of you. And the lady gave her a Social Security card, So sometimes you have to use the innate intelligence within yourself that makes that declaration that I in me. And now that we're understanding that principle is the divine presence, we have to claim that in the moment. This is not of God. The I am present in me. Take charge. You have to declare the things that, But anyway, let me stop talking because I find myself, in a place where sometimes we have to just rely on some mother wit. Other than that, you won't be able to get across the street. There's cars coming from every single direction. And sometimes the sign doesn't last long enough for you to get from one side to the other, to walk safely. But you still have to get out there. And now I realize that there is not that much time on that sign where it says you can start walking and you safely arrive on the other side. But you got to get on out there if you want to get to the other side. So that's me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? All right. Let us just take a 5-minute break and then we'll do the closing meditation. 5 minutes. Take a very deep and slow breath. And as you inhale and exhale deeply and slowly, allow the universal life force that permeates everything to enter into your lungs. Keep breathing deeply and slowly. And let your soul and your awareness grow up in the middle of your chest. Please forgive me. I love you. And I let go. Please forgive me. I love you. And I let go. Please forgive me. I love you. And I let go. I become aware of all of the fears that exist in my emotional body, my mental body, and my physical body. Without judgments or qualification. Simply noticed if you have any fears that are triggering you into survival. Whether the survival is triggered by financial issues, disease, insecurities in living environment, fear for food securities, fear for the growth and the proper development of all children and grandchildren. Whatever these fears are, and however they show up, just take a very deep breath and acknowledge that you're vulnerable. Just keep breathing deeply and slowly. and realize that there is a part of your life at this instant that you're not in control of. Lord, take this cup away from me. Remove this vulnerability and this fear of the unknown that is trapping my consciousness into the survival metrics. I release all of these attachments, fears, and control. And I surrender all of them into the great emptiness and endless luminosity. I let go. I release all attachments, fears, and control. And I surrender into the great emptiness and endless luminosity. I release all attachment, fears, and control. And I surrender into the great emptiness and endless luminosity. I now become aware of all related fears, duplicated fears and attachments, and replicated fears and attachments. Now take a deep breath from the core of the earth and let this breath move through the bottom of your feet, passing through you, dislodging all of these fears, and let it all be released outside of your head like a geyser and release it completely into source. I release all attachments, fears, and control. And I surrender into the great emptiness and endless luminosity. I release all attachments, fears, and control. And I surrender into the great emptiness and endless luminosity. I release all attachments, fears, and control. And I surrender into the great emptiness and endless luminosity. I surrender all attachment, fears, and control. And I surrender into the great emptiness and endless luminosity. I release all attachment, fears, and control. And I surrender into the great emptiness and endless luminosity. Thank you for the blessings. I accept the gifts and I receive with gratitude. Thank you for the blessings. I accept the gifts and I receive with gratitude. Thank you for the blessings. I accept the gifts and I receive with gratitude. Take a very deep and slow breath. And whenever you feel ready, open your eyes. How are you all feeling?
Thank you, Pierre.
You're welcome.
Very helpful. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for showing us the way.
You're welcome, Janice.
Thank you, Pierre.
You're welcome. You're
And I'm
welcome.
going to tell you.
Thank you, Pierre. At the end of the meditation, in my mind's eye, before I opened my eyes, I saw this beautiful pink roses sparkling.
Yay! Beautiful, beautiful, wonderful. Thank you, thank you. All right, everyone. Deep love Love you all. Thank you. And I'll talk to you next week. Good night.
Good night,
Good night.
everybody.
Good night.